Hello everyone, welcome to AWS and Linux Foundation course. So today the agenda is to talk about the Linux file and the directory structure and talking about the absolute and the relative paths and the VI editors, and we'll talk about the Linux users and then the permissions, right? So that's the goal. We'll see how much can be completed in today lecture, right? So immediately let me jumping on to the AWS management console because we just need a EC2 server, right, in order to get into the Linux and start working on the Linux operating system to configure it as per our need, right? So slowly we are building the use case as well, how we are using this Linux EC2 instances for our business, but we'll have to cross all of these Linux basics first, right? So let me go ahead and create a simple server in Mumbai region. Then I will be using that EC2 instance to logging in and start doing the Linux related configurations. Well, I could see the instance is already there. Look like I have not terminated this instance, the one which I created in the previous lecture. So let me take this public IP and let me use my putty. You see now the session is already saved, right? I can just load the session and can replace the IP if you are using the new IP for your EC2 instance. The key is everything is already attached, right? Because I'm using the saved session now. So I can just logging into this EC2 instance with the EC2 hyphen user as the default username. Good. Just to recollect few important terminologies, guys, the home directory is the one where you are landing into by default when you're logging into your EC2 instances. PWD is the command to show you the present working directory, and this is the directory where I'm currently in, correct? That means EC2-user is also a name of the directory that you see in the home that is under the root. This is called as a home directory of the currently logged in user EC2-user that I can verify by using the who am I as well. Good. Let me clear the screen. Now let me go back to the file under the directory hierarchy in the Linux systems. Here we have seen that the top level directory name is slash, and under the slash we can see a lot of subdirectories and the nested directories, guys. In the Linux, right, the relationship between the directories is treated like this. If I take this log is the directory name, the var is called as a parent directory of this log. Messages is called as a child directory for this log. That means in the Linux, all the directories are actually laid out with the parent and the child relationship. We always call the parent is the top level, one level top level folder of the directory. Child is one level, the bottom level directory name, guys, low level. That's how the parent and the child relationship. And yes, any directory or a file that you create in the Linux must be having a parent. Without having a parent relationship, you cannot create any of the file or a directory. That relationship must be there, and that relationship should go towards your top level root directory. That is how it is designed. Good. Now, so in order to switch to any other directory that you wanted to go, can use the cd command. Cd, and you specify the location to which directory you would like to go and hit enter. That is where you can now see that you are in the root directory now. Good. That means whenever you are creating a directory by using mkdir, or you are creating a file using touch command, either the way, right, you are creating a file or directory. Definitely this is a question mark, right? When I ask you, hey, could you please go and create a file or directory in the Linux system, the next immediate question will be, tell me the location where you are expecting me to create a file or directory, correct? The same kind of question will come in Windows as well. Let's say if I ask you, hey, can you create a simple movie folder in my Windows system? What will you be asking me? Tell me the location. You are expecting me to create a folder in C colon or D colon or F colon. And again, there are multiple folders are there. Tell me in which location exactly you are expecting me to create it. Is it in desktop, downloads, my documents, or whatever, right? Agree with me, guys. The same way, when it comes to the Linux, when I'm creating a file or directory, definitely the question would be where exactly you are trying to create it, correct? So we already know that ls is the command to see the list of files and directories. If you are expecting to create something, maybe to create a directory mkdir, then specify the directory name, right? Then you need to define the path as well, guys. Where exactly you are trying to create this directory, that path has to be specified. Let's say, right? Let's say my requirement is I wanted to create this dir1 directory as per this diagram. So tell me, guys, where this dir1 has to be created. It should be created in a parent called ec2-user directory, in the parent called hymu directory, in the parent called slash. So what is the complete absolute path of the directory where you would like to create? That path has to be specified here, guys. That's it. You see now, mkdir, yet whatever you see at the last, that is the directory name that you wanted to create, but you need to specify the path where you wanted to create. If you are specifying the path starting from the slash root directory, then that is called as a absolute path. What is absolute path? Absolute path is the location where you would like to referencing the directory or a file starting from the root directory. That is called as a absolute path. You define the absolute path where you wanted to create it and you hit enter, so that that directory will be get created on that specific location only. Here I am getting a error. It's stating that cannot create, obviously, right? It says that it already exists. When this directory already there and it is complaining that no, I can't create a one more because with this name in the same location already there. How will you verify that? How will you verify that this name is already exist in this particular location? What is the command to see the list of files and directories, guys? That's a verification, right? ls. Okay, it's complaining that already exists. Let me verify whether this directory is already there or not with the same name in the same location. Again, ls is the command to see the list, but where exactly you are trying to see the list? Correct. I wanted to see the list in slash in home directory in ec2-user directory. That is just a directory name, and hit enter. You see now in this specific location already dir1 is there. Already there is a folder called movies. So this is telling that the the location where you are trying to create a folder, there is a one folder already exist. As you know, if you give -l flag, which will be giving you more details about your listing along with the different properties of that directory. Good. So the dir1 is already there. That's the reason I was not able to create, but let me try to create dir2. You see, now the command is successful. You run the ls command to see the list in this location. Now you see that the dir2 is listed here, guys. So I'm proving here that you need to use the absolute path to define the location where you wanted to create a directory, right? Or even when you are trying to list, you need to specify the location where you wanted to see the list to your ls command. It applies to any command that you are referencing to a file or a directory. Let's say I'm trying to create a file. Let's say the file name is f1. We need to tell that This file you are creating it in the which location? I wanted to create it in the slash, in the home, in the ec2 hyphen user directory. That is how we need to define the complete absolute path. Now you do up arrow in your screen, in your keyboard, that will take you guys to the previously executed commands. You execute the commands one more time. Now you see that the f1 file is actually created in this location, right? That's what we can confirm it again using the ls command, guys. Is it clear about the absolute path? Absolute path is the path that you are defining from the root level of directory, which is the starting point in your Linux systems. Now, let's say I wanted to create something in the tmp directory. Now, what will be the command, guys? Touch, specify the file name, whatever the file name that you would like to. Where you wanted to create this file? I wanted to create it in the slash, in the tmp. That's how we need to give the absolute path. You wanted to verify ls hyphen l. I wanted to see the list of files under the directories under the slash tmp location, and now you see that the f2 is already there here. Like that, in whichever the location you wanted to create, you need to define that location path starting from the root, that is called as a absolute path. Hope this is good now. Let me clear the screen. Now I'll talk about something else. You see, I'm using cd slash tmp to go to the tmp location. If I do pwd now, right, I am currently in the slash tmp as my working directory. Now the question. Now the requirement is I wanted to create a file under the tmp location. Let's say my file name is f4. Now, how will you be creating this f4 file under this tmp location, guys? The command is touch. I wanted to create a file called f4. Where you wanted to create? I wanted to create it under slash tmp location, correct? So this is called as an absolute path. Good. But now the question here is, if you see your present working directory, you are already in the tmp directory. When you are already in the present working directory as the directory where you wanted to create a file, then why you should be worrying about specifying the absolute path? Rather, you giving the complete path start from root directory. Because you are already in the present working directory, you can just denote that by using a dot. Wherever you are specifying dot, the dot refers that present working directory. That means this dot will be now replacing with your present working directory. That way you don't need to specify the absolute path starting from the root. If you are already in the present working directory where you are trying to create, you can just specify that, hey, please create a f4 file from the present location only. Dot refers present working directory, guys. You hit enter. Now tell me where the f4 file is created. It is actually created it in the tmp location, and you see now the f4 file is available in the tmp location. If you are not giving the absolute path, ideally the absolute path in the sense the path that start with the slash, and here my path is not started with a slash, it is started with a dot, right? So the dot refers that relative path. Dot refers present working directory, which is nothing but a relative path. That means I'm giving the relative path starting from my present working directory by denoting a dot over there, guys. It applies for everywhere wherever you are referencing the location of a file or a directory. Let's say I wanted to see the list of files and directories. Where you wanted to see? Let's say I wanted to see in the tmp location. I'm already in the tmp location, right? Why should I be worried about giving tmp? Rather, I can just give that, I can just give dot. What does it mean? Hey, I wanted to see the list of files and directories in the project working directory. And you see now, ls-l/tmp, ls-l dot, both are giving you the same output. Why? The dot is actually replaced with the present working directory, whereas your present working directory is tmp, and that's the reason these two commands are same. One command is absolute path, one command is actually a relative path. Good. Let me clear the screen. That way the relative path will be makes your life easier, right, rather you worrying about giving the path start from the root directories. Now let's say my requirement is I wanted to create a one more file in the tmp location as an example, right? Under the tmp I'm creating a one more file called f3. How will you do? Touch the file name. So if you wanted to go with the absolute path, you give dot slash tmp. If you wanted to go with the relative path, you give dot slash. But before you determining whether you can give the dot slash or not, you need to verify what is your present working directory. If you are already working in the same directory where you wanted to create, then obviously you can use dot slash. Agree with me? Now, dot slash is always optional. Whether you give dot slash, whether you don't give dot slash, both are treated in the same fashion, guys. That means if you are not giving any path, you only define the name of the file there, then by default this is treated to create it in the present working directory only. So whether you give dot slash or you don't give the dot slash, both are same. Both are treating it to create it in the present working directory only. That applies for everywhere. Let's say I wanted to see the list in my tmp. If you wanted to go with absolute path slash tmp, if you wanted to go with a relative path, dot is optional, right? You don't need to give dot as well. If you simply run ls command, ls is by default looking for your present working directory, as you have not given a custom explicit path here. So by default this is looking into your current working directory only. Here I'm proving that you give the absolute path, you are getting the same output. You give the dot, you are getting the same output. You are executed without any path, you are getting the same output. I'm referencing that it's up to you, your comfortability. You would like to mention the absolute path or a dot notation, or even without a dot notation. All are treated same if you are already in the present working location as your current working directory. Good. Let me clear the screen. I'm showing you different exercises here to get a more familiarity about the absolute and the relative paths case. Let's say now my requirement is I wanted to create one directory in the TMP location. As an example, right? My requirement is under the TMP, I wanted to create a dir1. Let me do that. mkdir, I wanted to create a directory. Either you can give tmp slash as an absolute path, or you give dot slash as a relative path, or you don't give anything, not a problem, because you are already in the tmp as a present working directory. Now you see that the dir1 is actually created in your present working directory location. Good. Now whenever you wanted to switch your present working directory, you can always use the cd command, right? Cd, let's say I wanted to go inside the dir1. Same thing, guys. If you are trying to go inside the dir1, you need to specify the path. Again, if you wanted to use absolute path, the command will be under the TMP, sorry, under the root directory, under the TMP directory, I wanted to go inside the dir1, or you can give dot slash. Hey, from the project working directory, I wanted to go to a dir1, or you don't give anything. I'm just showing couple of times the differences between absolute and the relative path, guys. You see now, currently I'm inside a dir1 directory. Now the requirement is like this. You can always help me the commands as well as per your understanding, right? Now the requirement is I wanted to create a file called f5 in dir1. So what will be the absolute path, what will be the relative path to create this f5 file? Touch f5. If it has to be a absolute path, slash tmp slash dir1 slash, correct? If it has to be a relative path, you always verify what is your PWD. The PWD says yes, you are on the right location, you give dot slash. As dot is always optional, you remove and create it. That way the file will be get created in the dir1 location. Good. Now the requirement is like this. I wanted to create a file in the tmp location, right? I wanted to create a file in the tmp location. The file is f6. Now tell me the command to create a f6 file in the tmp location. I'm looking for the absolute and the relative paths, guys. Touch f6. If it is absolute path, there will be no confusion. Always you need to give the path start from the root, right? It will be slash tmp slash, that's it. But when it is a relative path, always you need to look for pwd. Let me remove the command first. Let me run the pwd. You are currently in the dir1 location, right? This is the location where you are currently, but where I am trying to create, I'm not planning to create a file in the present working location. I wanted to create a file in the one level parent directory of my current working location, right? So the command will be like this. Touch dot dot slash. Wherever you are referencing dot dot is mean that, right, the one level parent of this particular directory. At this now, dir1 is my present working location, one level parent is the tmp, right? So it will be creating it in the tmp location only. I can verify that by running the command on the tmp. You can see that the f6 file is created it in the tmp location. So wherever you are using dot dot, that is referencing to one level of a parent directory. Hope this is good. Now let me create a few more directory structures to make this more understandable. I'm just preparing the scenario. I'm just preparing the scenario for you guys. This is the current situation. What I did, I created a dir1. Inside that there is one more directory. Inside that there is a one more directory. Currently this is my present working location, guys. Now my requirement is like this. I wanted to create a file in the tmp location using a relative path. What will be the command? Help me, guys. F8 is my file name. Currently I am in the dir3 location. So you go to one level of parent directory, that will go to dir2. You go to another one level of parent directory, that will be going to dir1. You go to another one level of parent directory, then that will go to TMP location. Yes, that is where I wanted to create a file and you now execute it. Now tell me guys, where this F8 file is created? It is created in the TMP location only, and I can see that. The only thing is I'm mentioning the path of this file in a relative path method. The relative path has two notations. Dot refers present working directory. Dot refers one level of parent directories. You can always use any number of parent directories by referencing dot multiple times with a slash as a separator, guys. Now it's up to you. You use the absolute path or you use the dot method or you use the dot method to mention the location of your file or a directory. Hope this is explaining about the absolute and the relative paths. Ideally, if you are working on the Windows systems, you don't get into all these confusions, right? If this is the Windows, right? So you can be in any location. If you wanted to go to, if you wanted to create a file or directory in any location, you always navigating that, right? You go to one level of parent, you go to other folder, then you create it there. But the Linux is giving you the flexibility to create a file and directory in any location, being in any location as a present working directory, correct? You can be in the same directory but can create a file or directory in any other location by referencing a path as absolute or a relative, whichever you feel comfortable. Hope this is good. So that explains about the absolute and the relative paths. Now, let's say I wanted to create a file. Touch where it is created. This is actually created it in the present working location. What is the purpose of a file? The directory, we know that the directory will be maintaining a subdirectories or a files in it, but the file is to store the content, right? Like how you create a notepad file and put the content inside that and save the file. Here also the same thing. Cat is the command to see the content of a file and specify the file name in which file you would like to see the content and hit enter. Yes, as of now, this file is a empty file. There is no content inside and I'm not getting any output there. But how will you be adding the content? How will you be adding a content to the file in the Windows systems, guys? You usually use this kind of editors, right? Maybe a notepad editor. Open the editor. There is a cursor for you. Wherever the cursor is there, that is the position where you can add a text. If you are managing the data, you move the cursor to the right place and you modify the data as per the requirement. That's how you use the editor, right? Yes. The same way, even in the Linux machine, we have the editor softwares. With the help of we need to data to the files. VI is the editor softwares that we can use in the Linux machines to modify the content of the file, and then you specify the file name in which file you would like to add a content. And the absolute and the relative path will be referencing to any command wherever you are mentioning the location. Even here I can say that, hey, I wanted to open the F1 file which is in the present working location, or you can give the absolute path as well, right? If you don't give anything, by default it will consider it from the present working location and that file will be get opened in a VI editor. Once you hit enter, now whatever you see in the screen, this is called as a VI editor. Now you don't have a bash shell, guys. You are inside a VI editor now. All of your bash shell commands will not work here. You need to use the VI editor commands to start working with your system. Any editor will have two modes. One is the command mode, one is the insert mode. For that matter, even if I go to my Notepad editor in my Windows system, even the Notepad also has the command and the editor modes, guys. Insert mode, correct? Let's say in my keyboard as of now I am pressing Ctrl S. Do you think the Ctrl S is taken as a text and you see that in the editor, in the file? No, right? Correct. Why? The Ctrl S is actually a command to my editor to instruct my editor that hey, the time to save this file. Correct. That means the Ctrl S is not taken as a text data to be entering it into the file. That is treated as a command to follow certain instructions in managing the file. Correct. But if you type any other data, that is taken as a text, that you can see it in the file itself. Same way in the Linux as well. It has a command mode, it has a insert mode. Command mode is to instruct the VI editor how it has to play with your file. Insert mode is to actually take the data and keep the data in your file. By default, when you open the VI editor, it will be in the command mode. Let's say I just open the file. If you start writing the data, it won't take it. You see, I'm pressing a letter called T. It's not accepting. Why? Currently it is in the command mode. Now I need to give a command to change my editor to the insert mode to start accepting the data. Correct? The command is I. If you type a command called I, then your VI editor will be turning it into the insert mode. The first time when you type I letter, that is not treated as a data. That is a command for my VI editor to switch to the insert mode. Now if you type any data, that is taken as a data. You see, now I'm typing something. That's how it is. Once you add some data to the file, what is your next step, guys? You need to save this, right? How will you be saving? In order to save the file, again you need to press any one of the key in your laptop. So now if you press a key, will you be telling to VI editor that hey, this key is a command or a data? Correct? If you are in a insert mode, whatever you are typing here, that is treated as a data, that is keep on adding it into the file only. If your requirement is to save this file, come out from this editor, close the editor, then first you be in the command mode. Then only it will be treating all of your pressing letters will be treated as a commands. How will you go back to the command mode? Because if you're not going to the command mode, anything that you are typing now is taken as a data. To go to the command mode, you need to press a key called escape. In your laptop, in your keyboard, if you press a escape key, then your VI editor will be moving to the command mode. Now, whatever the letter you type, that is treated as a command, not a data. The command to save this and quit from the editor back to your bash terminal is :WQ. You see, when it is in the command mode, the :WQ is treated here as a command. W is to save, Q is for quitting. Come out from this editor. Hit enter. Now you see that the file is successfully saved and you back to your bash terminal. Now if you run your cat command, the file is showing some data. This is the data that I have written it in my VI editor, guys. Are we good with this? Again, if you use a VI and the file name, this time because the file is already having some data, the existing data will be showing. Now it's up to you how you wanted to modify or delete or change the data. Same process. The moment when you open the VI editor, the editor will be in the command mode. First, you need to give a command how you are expecting the behavior of the VI editor. Then you do whatever the changes that you wanted to do for your data. Let's say this time there was some data already there and there is some typo mistakes in my data. I wanted to correct it. Same process. If this is the Windows system, usually wherever you wanted to change the data, you move the cursor from one location to another location by doing a mouse over, right? You take the mouse over there, click it. That's how the cursor is moving. But here, everything is the instruction. Let's say this is where I wanted to change the data. Currently, your cursor is in this location. You need to move the cursor to the right location by pressing the keys. H is the letter to type in to move the cursor to the right side. L is the key to move the cursor to the left side. If you are having multiple lines like this, for example, second line, let's say third line. If you have multiple lines, then K is the command to move the cursor to the upper lines. J is the command to move the cursor to the bottom lines. That is how you need to navigate a cursor to the right position wherever you wanted to do the changes. Let's say this is the place where I want to change the data, right? I move the cursor to the right location first. Then you go to the insert mode. If your requirement is to add the data before the cursor, that will be a inserting. If your requirement is to add the data after the cursor, that is called as a append mode. That makes sense, right? Inserting is mean that before the cursor, append is mean that after the cursor. Now let's say here I'm expecting DATA. So I need to add A before the cursor, right? So let me type the command called I. When you press on a command called I, it is in the insert mode. Now whatever the letter that you type that is taken as a data, the data is inserted before the cursor. Again, if you are giving any instructions, go back to the command mode by pressing a escape, guys. You see, now I am in the command mode. Now again, you move the cursor to the right location wherever you wanted to. If you're expecting you need to add a space after the data, let's say the currently my cursor is in a position called A. After data, I wanted to give a space. So that means I need to insert something after the cursor, right? Which is called as a appending. So you press a command called A. Now you see after that whatever you type that is taken there. That's how you are appending the data after the cursor position. Again, you go back to the command mode by pressing escape. Let's say all these are the junk data. I don't want it. I wanted to remove them. X is the command to remove a character at a cursor position. Again, you press X, one more letter will be deleted. Again, you press X, one more letter will be deleted. That is how you need to clean up the data. Deleting a single character, right? Whichever you don't want it. That's how there is a command mode and the insert mode. By following this combination, we need to format the exact data that how you would like to keep on here. At the moment, the goal is only to know the VI editor commands how to keep some data. Do not worry what kind of data that we need to keep in the real time in the working environment. That we'll be learning in next lectures anyway. After you do the changes, you go back to the command mode, colon, W, hit enter, that is only saving, colon, Q is quitting. Again, you go to the file and then you go to the insert mode and can start adding some data. Again, you try to save it by save and come out from this. If you do some changes and you are not saving them and you are trying to come out from the editor, it will be complaining, saying that, hey, you made some changes, you are not saving that, you are trying to close the editor. Same behavior, right? Even in Windows. You do some changes in the notepad, you try to close the notepad file, it will ask you the prompt, hey, you wanted to save, you wanted to discard. We know how to save by using the W command. If you don't want to save these changes, you can always give a Q exclamatory, hit enter. That means, hey, forcefully quit the editor. I don't want to save these changes, come out. If we do cat command, we can see that as of now, 3 lines of data added to this file like that. There are few VA editor related commands are there that you should be get familiar with. That commands will help you to move the cursor to the right place and replacing the text as per the need. So in my learning notes, right, I think I will be adding all of them into your AWS Linux Foundation learning notes. But for now, let me show you all of these things from other tutorial. You see, these are the different VA editor commands that are available to you to modify your data, guys. Just try to see these commands and practice these commands, how these commands are affecting in your editor to prepare your data. Try to write some 10 lines of data and try to do some modifications with the help of all these commands that will give you the familiarity with the VI editor, which is very much important topic in the Linux. So do some practice with this list of commands, which I'm going to add it to your learning notes documentation as well, guys. Let me clear the screen now. Any system, any server will have some limitations. That means, let's say here I logged into the Linux server as EC2 user, right? I don't want to give a complete access on my server. Just think of a real-time nature. For example, you have your own laptop and for some reason you wanted to share your laptop to your friend. Will you be giving the complete administrative permissions for your friend as well to act on your laptop? No, right? You wanted to set some restriction. Hey, I am the administrator. I should be having the superpower on my system, but when I'm giving this to someone else as a shareable system, they should not use all the administrative permissions to install, delete, uninstall a softwares. I wanted to give him a limited permission based on their responsibility. What is that they wanted to do on my system, correct? That's always will be there for any system, any server. Here also same thing. This Linux system is the multi-user operating system. That means the multiple users can access your single EC2 server at the same time. So I don't want to give the complete administrative permission for everyone to do anything on my system. Let's say as of now I created a file. If this system is being used by other user as well, I don't want others are actually deleting my file. I wanted to restrict, hey, you can't delete my file though you are using the same system. How will you be enforcing that kind of the permissions to the each individual user not to have a complete access on the system is what is the Next goal, following me. I'm going very detailed and slow as well by considering that you guys are pretty new to this Linux world. Especially the Linux is more confusing initially because you always see a blank screen, but there are a lot of things behind the screen. Everything you need to fetch using a simple commands. To support this, the Linux has multiple users. The super user, ordinary user. Super user is the user which is having the complete permission on the system to do any changes. Ordinary user is the user who has a limited permission to act on. By default, when you logging could when you logging into the system using EC2 hyphen user as the username, this user is called as a ordinary user. That means this user not having a complete permission to do any changes on the system, guys. This is a limited user. Now I'll show you what are those limitations. Let's say this is the Linux structure, right? Let's say my requirement is I wanted to create a file in the root location. You see, this is where I wanted to create a file. As an example, a file in the slash location, touch slash F3, correct? You see the error, permission is denied. Why? This currently logged in user EC2 hyphen user does not have access to create a file in the slash location. There is because this is a ordinary user. I'm just proving one that this is the ordinary user cannot create any file, any directory in any location. There are certain rules are there. Then who is the super user? Who has a complete permission on the system, right? So you cannot logging into the super user directly because of the security best practices. First, you always log into the system as a ordinary user like a EC2 hyphen user. From the ordinary user, if you wanted to switch to the super user, you need to run a command called su sorry sudo space su space hyphen space root. This is a command to go to the root user. ROOT is the username that is available in any Linux machines. This ROOT is called as a root user, is called as a super user, is called as a administrator user who has a complete permission on this system. How will you be logging into this? First, you log in as a ordinary user. EC2 hyphen user is the one in my case. Then you run sudo su hyphen root command to go to this root permissions. A later part I'll definitely talk about what is this sudo su command, how this is working, how to configure it, all these things definitely. But for now, this is the command to go to the root. Now you can see that who am I is telling that you currently logged into the root user. One big difference is your bash terminal prompt symbol was dollar when it is a ordinary user. Your bash prompt symbol is the hash when it comes to the root user. That is the default representation for you to quickly understand whether you currently logged in as a root or a ordinary user. You see, the same command that was not working when I logged in as an ordinary user is now working because root is a super user. This user can create, delete, destroy, configure anything that he like it in the Linux system as root is super user. Always you can run a command called exit to come out from the root user back to your normal user. That's how you switch to the root user and can come back to the ordinary user by running a exit command. Good. Let me go back to the root. Sorry. Let me go back to the root. The way how a ordinary and the root users are there, it is possible to create multiple ordinary users by running a command called user add. Let's say there is one more new user who would like to use my system. I can create a username and password for that user and he can logging in with his individual user account. User add, let's say I wanted to create a user called PR, hit enter, and I wanted to set a password for the user, PASSWD, and specify the username and hit enter, and you specify the new password there. Now I can give this username and password to that PR user. Hey, you can log in with these credentials. So to the same EC2 server, to the same IP address, that user can logging in from his laptop, from his party. So that way, every individual engineer can have their own credentials to logging into your EC2 server. That is what is multi-user operating system. Multiple users can access your single EC2 server at the same time with their own credentials. Yes. Now also the PR user is actually a ordinary user, and this user has very limited permission on the system, though he logged into this system, guys. Good. So this PR user can logging in from their side, or the root has complete permission, right? The root user can easily switch to that user account. You see, su is the command to switch from one user account to another user account. You can logging in directly from the party, or if you already logged in it with any other user account, from that existing login account you can switch to a other account as well by using the su command. You see, from the root user I am switching to the PR user easily. Correct. I currently logged into this system as a PR user. It will not ask you any password while you are switching to this user because you are executing this command as a super user. Because super user can do anything, it will not expect any credentials to be supplied of this user, guys. You are actually logged in as a PR user. Good. If you do a exit, you come out from the PR account and back to your root. If you do one more exit, you come out from this root and back to your EC2-user. EC2 is the ordinary user, right? If this user is actually trying to switch to the PR account, you see it is asking, hey, you supply this PR user password, then only you can go to that account. Why? EC2-user is the ordinary user. If the ordinary user has to go to any other user account, the credential has to be supplied. But whereas if the root user is trying to go to a other user account, then you don't need to supply any credentials. That's how the difference in. If I supply the PR account credentials, let's say I'm giving the password as PR123. Now, yes, I logged into the PR account. But yes, we need to supply the password if you are trying it from the ordinary user. Are we good with this? Let me clear the screen. That means it is possible to create multiple user accounts in the Linux systems and all the users can logging into either directly or maybe via the su command to switch from one account to other account. Then we need to think of about the permissions, which user can do what on my system. We'll definitely talk about the permissions in the next lecture to deal with, right? So today we are understood how to create a file, absolute path, relative path methods, VA editor, how to keep the data there, how to use the VA editor in the command mode and the insert mode. Then now we have seen the root user or super user, ordinary users, how to create a ordinary users and switching from one user to a other user by using a su command, how to become the super user by running a command called sudo sudo su hyphen root. The user add command which I have used to create account, this command will be executable only from the root, guys. Let's say if you are on the ordinary user, the user add command will not work, you see. Let's say I'm taking a user from here. You see, the ordinary user is not having a permission to run these commands and it is restricted. The bash is complaining, hey, you can't execute this command because you are a ordinary user. That's how the differences between ordinary and the super user. Good. So I think as per the agenda that what we talked about today, right? So it was mentioned that we talk about absolute relative VA editor Linux users, then the permissions. I think it's a little heavy in understanding all this. Let me park this Linux permissions to the next class. We'll talk about the permissions in detail in one single session. How will you be granting a permission to each user, what the user can do on the system, right? And how to restrict whether a user can delete a file or not, right? Where the user can create a directory or a file, all those things in the next lecture, guys, right? Let's say I'm switching to the PR user. I need to supply the password because I'm going to the other user account from the ordinary user. I logged in as PR. This PR user is also a ordinary user, right? The ordinary users cannot run any more commands. See, this ordinary user cannot run a privileged commands that are required a root level of access. You see, the PR user is not able to. The PR user cannot even go to the root account. You see this? The sudo su hyphen root command that was working for your EC2 hyphen user, that command is not even working for my PR user. The EC2 hyphen user is the default ordinary user that you are getting in your Linux machines, and that is having the access to go to the root. But whereas the additionally created normal accounts are not having access to go to the root as well. It is possible to give the access, that permissions we'll see in the next lecture, but for now this is not having an access to go to the root also, correct? So that is where we talk about the permissions in the next lecture, how to grant a permission to the ordinary users, right? Let me come back. Once you know this, how to create, how to delete, how to create a file directory, obviously now you can do any exercises that you like it. Let's say I wanted to move a file from one location to another location. Always you need to specify the source and specify the destination. Let's say I wanted to move the file F1. Where is this file? The file is currently in the present working directory. That is my source. Where you wanted to move? Let's say I wanted to move this to a TMP location. Like that, specify the present working location path, specify the target to which location you wanted to move, and hit enter. Your file will be moved. Now you see the file. The file is not there. The file was sometime back, it is there. That file is moved to there, and the file is not in the present location. That is already moved. This is like a cut and paste in your Windows machines, right? You cut a file, you paste it into some other location. That's how you are moving the stuff. The same will applicable for any directory as well. MV, the directory name, and specify the target location to which target you wanted to move. That's how the mv command will works for you to move it, guys. If you wanted to copy, right, the copy and paste is mean that the source is still there, but the destination also will have a one more copy. The command is cp. Same thing. Specify the source from where you wanted to copy the file. Specify the target to which location you wanted to copy the file. You see, the file that was there in the TMP location, I'm copying it into my present location, and now I can see my file is here. I'm just copying it. So all these exercises now can be played. So before we are done with the session, I wanted to show you one more. Now you should understand what does it mean by cd slash slash. I'm just going to one level parent directory, guys. In my present working directory, now I have a directory called dir3 inside. I wanted to delete this directory. What is the command? rmdir is the command to delete a directory, but this command to delete a empty directory. You see, this is failing. Why? The dir3 is not a empty. You can verify that. dir3 is actually containing some more files and directories inside. So you cannot delete a directory which is not empty by using rmdir. Tell me, guys, technically, how can you delete a directory that has a data? Think of like this as an example. Maybe here, as an example, I'll bring up the scenario. Let's say I wanted to delete this dir2. How will you delete this? Because if you delete this, what about the child that is there? That is depending on the parent, right? So if you wanted to delete this, first you delete the child, then you delete the parent. Agree with me? I'm sure you are following the same thing even in the Windows, right? You cannot delete a folder by keeping the nested childs, right? If you delete a parent, all the childs also will be gone. So if you wanted to delete a folder along with the child, the command is rm space hyphen r space the directory name. Whenever you give the flag called r means recursive, is mean that hey, I wanted to delete this folder. If inside the folder any sub files are there, first you delete these sub childs. Once the child structure is deleted, then you please delete the directory. That is how the recursive flag will be, right? So if the directory is not an empty directory, you always do a recursive flag. How will you copy the directory? As I said, cp dir1 I wanted to copy. I wanted to copy this to, let's say, slash home location. Sorry. You don't have a permission, that is fine because you are an ordinary user. So let me use the different path. You definitely will be having a access to your home directory, guys. Okay, there is a movie file, the movies folder in my home directory. I wanted to copy this. cp hyphen r means recursive movies folder. I wanted to copy to tmp location. You see, now you verify it in the tmp location, the movies folder is copied. Why I'm using tmp each and every time? Because any ordinary user can have access to the TMP location. That is the reason I'm using for these exercises. If you go to any other folder, you may be having a not having a access as a ordinary user. That's the reason. Anyway, later we'll see how to grant a permission, how to access other folders, all those things by giving a proper permissions in place, guys. I hope these are the simple basics that helps you in understanding the Linux flavor and working through in managing the files, directories, absolute relative paths along with the VI editor and managing the content. If any questions, do let me know for today, guys, or else we are good for today. And all these basics are uploaded to your learning notes documentation, which you can get it from the EDUeki portal in the tutorial section, AWS and Linux Foundation learning notes. And here you can see all these basics up to last lecture. I'm going to add for today lecture as well. Here you can find all these basics commands here for you to do the exercise, guys. The video of this content is available in the YouTube. You can go to the YouTube tab there, that will direct to the Edwiki Learning YouTube channel. This is where you can see all of the videos. I precisely can recommend you go to the playlist and see the AWS and Linux Foundation. This is where all of your course lectures are uploaded so far. You can subscribe as well to get a notification and can make use of these basics, which will be a very much useful foundation for you to entry it into the IT level, guys. If more questions, do let me know. Thank you. You see, currently I am in the TMP location. Let's say I wanted to go to my home. You know, right? What does it mean by home? Home is
Yes.
the default landed place where you will be when you logging into the server, right? That folder is called as home. Anytime you wanted to go to your home, you can simply run cd enter. That's it. Now you see your home. You are in the home. This is the default location where you landed when you logged into the server, right? That is your home. Now, let's say again I am in the TMP location. I wanted to go to my home. You can run cd and the tilt symbol. Hit enter. You are in the home. You see, td tilt, sorry, cd tilt is referring that you are actually navigating to your home directory. You give the tilt, you don't give the tilt, just give the cd, both are same. Okay, the cd tilt is actually taking you to the home directory of the currently logged in user. That's what is the difference. Always when you give dot slash, this is different. The dot slash refers that from the presently working location you wanted to navigate to any of the child structure, then the dot slash is meaningful. The tilt is taking you back to your home directory no matter where you are currently working on, right? Hope this is clear. Thank you.